Southeast Asian theatres form one of the most rich and variegated forms of theatres. Today, we shall look into the Japanese theatre. This section aims at introducing the rich and unique theatre forms that the world received from Japan. These art forms are ingrained in Japan's fascinating cultural history and are packed with centuries-old traditions and practices that infuse theatre with innovations and sensibilities of passing time. No, Kabuki and Bunraku are the traditional and much treasured theatre forms of Japan. They are characterized with aspects and elements that make them effectively original, individual and unparalleled as theatrical forms. The contemporary theatre of Bhutto that completely transgresses the traditional theatrical forms of Japan reflects the new intellectual and philosophical underpinnings and the post-war sensibilities of Japanese youth. Let us now have a look at No. No, an art form that has been a part of traditional Japanese classical music drama since the 14th century, is the oldest theatre form of Japan, which has survived well into the contemporary period. The stories performed are usually based on traditional literature, mythology and folklore, with a supernatural narrator hero who assumes human form to narrate the story. The performances are written in ancient Japanese language and emotions are conveyed with the help of conventional no gestures. This dance drama is performed with masks, stylized costumes and various props, the use of which requires intense training and expertise. The very word no is derived from Sino-Japanese word for skill or talent, as only rather highly trained actors and musicians perform this iconic art form, performed till date almost in its pristine glory. Let us now move on to the history and origin. We begin with the origin. No is said to have originated from Sarugaku, which was developed from Japanese comic theatre, and Sangaku, a popular form of entertainment that came to Japan from China in the Nara period. Sarugaku included pantomime, acrobatics and magic. It quickly spread through Japan, being performed assiduously and regularly at shrines and on roadsides to entertain the masses. It is not clear when the word no was first used, though there is reasonable proof that initially the words may have been used to describe all kinds of performances. From the Nambokucho period through the Muromachi period, no was widely divided into two categories called Sarugaku no and Denkaku no. Sarugaku no was largely based on mimetic movements, while Denkaku no was more associated with symbolic movement. While Denkaku no was accepted by the nobility and performed largely in the capital, Sarugaku no was not accepted in the capital and was played largely in Omi, Tanba, Ise and the areas surrounding the capital, gaining immense popularity. The performances were codified and bound strictly by the school system. At the time, both Sarugaku and Denkaku had formed groups known as Sarugaku-za and the Denkaku-za, and each group had a chief. There were four particularly strong groups: Yusaki-za, Sakado-za, Tobi-za and Enmai-za. These four groups became the four oldest no schools that remain to date and are known as the Kanzei, Kongo, Hosho and Komparu schools respectively. All sources agree that the definitive step towards the art form of no, as we know it now, was taken by Kanami, the founder of Yuzaki-za from the Iga province, and his son Zami. Kanami introduced a style of storytelling called kuseimai, a song and dance with a strong irregular beat to no. Zemi inherited no from his father and perfected it. In the Muromachi period, with the support of the shoguns Ashikaga Yoshimitsu and Nijo Mote, Zemi was able to develop his own art and his notion of yugen or mysterious beauty, which he included in a number of his Mugen no, which is called Phantasmal no, including the masterpiece Izutsu, which is one of over 50 no's that are attributed to Zemi's hand. Some of his works are performed even today. Following Zemi's death, his nephew Onami and the son-in-law of Komparu Genchiku took over as the head of the troupe and continued developing the art even as the Onin Wars destroyed the capital. During the Tokugawa era, no continued to be aristocratic form supported by the shogun, the feudal lords known as daimyo, as well as the wealthy. Following the fall of the Tokugawa shogunate, no too was in crisis. The following Meiji period saw the birth of a new government and industrial system in Japan, as well as a return of entertainment for ordinary citizens. Let us move on to some of the primary and significant conventions and practices of the Japanese theatre. No performance combines a variety of elements into a stylistic whole, enriched through generations of additions and refinement and perfect preservation of traditions. Through the centuries of its existence, No strived to preserve its established high standards and historic authenticity and remained mostly unchanged throughout the era. The performances stylized by the great masters of the troupes were still held at high esteem, and artists strived to continue their legacy by reproducing every detail in movements and positions. This resulted in an increasingly slow, ceremonial tempo over time. Masks are an integral part of No performance. These masks are made from Japanese cypress and are painted with natural pigments. The masks signify age, gender and class of the character. There are masks also for non-human characters such as demons, divine creatures and animals. Masks are among the highly cherished and treasured possessions of No schools, and the powerful schools still preserve the oldest masks in their private collections. The use of masks is very innovative, as their intent is not about abandoning facial expressions altogether, but to stylize the facial expressions in a controlled manner through measured movements and body language, which stimulate the imagination of the audience. Some masks utilize lighting effects, which convey different emotions by a slight tilting of the head. Costumes consist of multiple layers and textures that create an effect of resplendent elegance, but also project a bulky, massive figure. The actors wear silk costumes called shozoku, which are robes with striking colors, elaborate in texture and intricate weaves and embroidery. The musicians and chorus typically wear formal monsuki kimono, which is a black and adorned with 5 family crests, accompanied by either hakama, which is a shirt-like garment, or kamishimo, which is a combination of hakama and a waistcoat with exaggerated shoulders. Props in No are minimalistic and stylized. The most commonly used prop in No is a fan, as it is carried by all performers regardless of role. During performance sequences, the fan is typically used to represent various objects through the course of the play, such as a sword, wine jug, flute or writing brush. Set pieces such as the boats, wells, altars and bells are typically carried onto the stage before the beginning of the act in which they are needed. These props normally are only outlines to suggest actual objects, although the great bell is designed to conceal the actor and to allow a costume change for the actors. Kyogen are the comic interludes between the main no performance. They utilize satire and witty jokes and are often performed with rhythmical language and sometimes exaggerated actions to inspire laughter from the audience. Most Kyogen pieces last for about 15 to 20 minutes and involve 2 or 3 actors. Roles in no are of 3 kinds: the principal actor or shite, the subordinate actor who plays a foil to shite called waki, and the Kyogen actors, the actors of the interlude piece between 2 no's. In addition to these roles, there is hayashi, non-acting participants of no. They play instruments for the performance. A typical no play always involves the chorus, the orchestra and at least 1 shite and 1 waki actor. The stage where the performance takes place is a square area measuring 5.4 meters each side, with a roof that is supported at its 4 corners by pillars. All sides of the stage are open except for the rear side, which consists of a wall with a painted image of a pine tree. A corridor, hashigakari, extends from the back of the stage for performers to enter and leave the stage. Traditionally, the no was performed outdoors. The roof is an addition of recent times, which dates back only about 100 years in comparison with a long history of no. Let us now understand more about Kabuki, which is a classical dance drama. Kabuki is also a classical dance drama performance of Japan. It is an art form rich in showmanship. It involves elaborately designed costumes, eye-catching makeup, outlandish wigs and exaggerated actions performed by the actors. The highly stylized movements serve to convey meaning to the audience. This is especially important since an old-fashioned form of Japanese, as in case of no, is used in Kabuki, which is difficult even for Japanese people to understand. Plots are usually based on historical events, warm-hearted dramas, moral conflicts, love stories, tales of tragedy of conspiracy or other well-known stories. Bugaku, the dance ceremony of the imperial court, and the no theatre were long the exclusive domain of the nobility and the warrior class known as the samurai. Kabuki became the theatre of the townspeople and the farmers. Bugaku and no have a fragile elegance and an extreme subtlety of movement. Kabuki is somewhat coarse and unrestrained, and its beauty is gaudy and extravagant. Let's now know about the history and origin of Kabuki. Kabuki dates back to the Edo period of the 17th century, when a woman performer by name Izumo no Okuni began performing a new style of dance drama in the dry riverbeds of Kyoto. She gathered a troupe of wandering female performers and stylized the first of a dramatic entertainment of any importance that was designed for the tastes of the common people. Soon, the sensuous character of the dances and the prostitution of the actors were deemed too disruptive by the orthodox, unimaginative government, which in 1629 banned women from performing. Consequently, by the 18th century, Kabuki had become an established, all male art form that was capable of the serious, dramatic presentation of genuinely moving situations. As merchants and other commoners in Japan began to rise on the social and economic scale, Kabuki as people's theatre was widely patronized and provided a vivid commentary on contemporary society. Kabuki derived much of its material from the No, and when Kabuki was banned in 1652, it re-established itself by adapting and parodying Kyogen. Let's now move on to the conventions and practices of Kabuki. Today, Kabuki is the most popular of the traditional styles of Japanese drama, and its star actors often appear in television or film roles. It even appears in works of Japanese popular culture such as anime. Stage is an important aspect of Kabuki performance. It consists of a projection called hanamichi, which literally means flower path. It functions as a walkway which extends into the audience and via which dramatic entrances and exits are made. The stage is not only used as a walkway or path to get to and from the main stage, but important scenes are also played on the stage. Kabuki stages and theatres have steadily become more technologically sophisticated, and innovations including revolving stages and trapdoors were introduced during the 18th century. A number of stage tricks, including actors' rapid appearance and disappearance, employ these innovations. Hanamichi and several innovations, including revolving stage seri, which refers to the stage traps, and chunori, a technique where the costume of the actor is bound by wires so he can be suspended from the wire and made to fly, have all contributed to Kabuki's fame. The structure of the performance is designed to ensure that the subject matter creates distinctions between the historical play, also known as jiraimono, and the domestic play called siwamono. A Kabuki program generally presents them in that order, separated by one or two dance plays featuring ghosts, courtesans and other exotic creatures. It ends with a lively dance finale which is known as Ogiri Shozagoto, undertaken with a large cast. The play follows a notion called Kanjin Choku, which means reward the virtuous and punish the wicked. Thus, the plays often present conflicts involving such religious ideas as the transitory nature from the world, which has been derived from Buddhism, and the importance of duty, which has been taken in from Confucianism, as well as more general moral sentiments. Tragedy occurs when morality conflicts with human passions. Structurally, the plays are typically composed of two or more themes in a complex suji, which is known as a plot, but they lack the strong unifying element for which Western drama strives. Kabuki plays include a variety of intermingled episodes which develop toward a final dramatic climax. The mi, in which the actor holds a picturesque pose to establish his character, is another important element in Kabuki. At this point, his house name, which is Yago, is sometimes heard in loud shout called kakego from an expert audience member, serving both to express and enhance the audience perception of the actor's achievement. Makeup is a distinctive and significant part of Kabuki. Keisho, Kabuki makeup, provides an element of style easily recognizable even by those unfamiliar with the art form. Rice powder is used to create the white oshiroi base for the characteristic stage makeup, and kumadori enhances or exaggerates facial lines to produce dramatic animal or supernatural masks. The color of the kumadori is an expression of the character's nature. Red lines are used to indicate passion, heroism, righteousness, and other positive traits. Blue or black, villainy, jealousy, and other negative traits. Green, the supernatural, and purple, nobility. Kabuki actors wear robe-like dresses called kimonos. The top and bottom parts of a kimono are in separate pieces covered by a thick sash for quick costume changes while on stage. When an actor changes on stage, the costume's color or design might change, but the pattern on the fabric doesn't change. This constant pattern is a reminder that the actor is the same. Let us now move on to Bunraku, which is the traditional puppet theatre of Japan. Bunraku is the traditional puppet theatre of Japan. It started off as popular entertainment for the commoners during the Edo period in Osaka and evolved into artistic theatre during the late 17th century. Along with No and Kabuki, it is recognized as a UNESCO intangible cultural heritage. Let us now understand the origin of this form. Puppetry appeared around the 11th century when Kugutsu Mawashi, the puppet turners or travelling players whose art may have come from Central Asia. Bunraku came into being in the 18th century when Yumura Bunraku-ken came to Osaka from Awaji and began his own theatre. It was originally the name of the theatre in which this puppet drama was performed, but gradually it came to be used as the name of the art itself and is today used as the official name of the puppet theatre. The art only came to be known as Bunraku around the end of the Meiji era. Up until that time, the art was known as Ayatsuri Joruri Shibai, which means puppet joruri plays, or Ningyo Joruri, or puppet narrative drama. Let us now move on to the conventions and practices. We begin with the performance. 3 kinds of performers take part in a Bunraku performance: the Ningyotsukai or Ningyotsukai, the puppeteers; the Tayu, the chanters; the Shamisen, who are the musicians. Occasionally, other instruments such as taiko drums will be used. Every play begins with a short ritual in which the Tayu, kneeling behind a small but ornate lectern, reverentially lifts his or her copy of the script to demonstrate devotion to a faithful rendering of the text. The script is presented at the beginning of each act as well. The main puppeteer, known as the Omazukai, uses his right or her right hand to control the right hand of the puppet. The left puppeteer, known as the Hidarizukai or Sashizukai, depending on the tradition of the troupe, manipulates the left hand of the puppet with his or her own right hand by means of a controlling rod that extends back from the elbow of the puppet. A third puppeteer, the Ashizukai, operates the feet and legs. Puppeteers begin their training by operating the feet, then move on to the left hand before being able to train as the main puppeteer. Strings are not used, but rather the puppeteers cooperate to maneuver the limbs, eyelids, eyeballs, eyebrows and mouths of the puppets, thereby producing lifelike actions and facial expressions. The puppeteers are in full view of the audience, but are dressed in black to symbolize that they are to be taken as invisible. Usually, a single chanter recites all the characters' parts, altering his vocal pitch and style in order to portray the various characters in a scene. Occasionally, multiple chanters are used. The chanters sit next to the shamisen player. Some traditional puppet theatres have revolving platform for the chanter and shamisen player which rotates, bringing placement musicians for the next scene. Let us now move on to puppets which are integral to the show. The heads of the puppets are known as kashira. They are divided into categories according to gender, social class and personality. Certain heads are created for specific roles. Others can be employed for several different performances by changing the clothing and the paint. The hair distinguishes the character and can also indicate certain personality traits. The hair is made from human hair, but yak tail hair is added to give volume. The costumes are designed by a costume master and are composed of a series of garments with varying colors and patterns. These garments typically include a sash and a collar as well as an underrobe which is known as the juban, an inner kimono called the kitsuke, a vest known as the hori, or an outer robe which is called uchikake. The process of dressing or redressing the puppets by the puppeteers is called koshire. The stage for Bunraku performance consists of 5 main elements. They are the musician's stage, the partitions and the pit, the small curtains and the screened off rooms. The musician's stage is called yuka. It is a sub-stage next to the main stage where the tayu and the shamisen players perform. The gidayu bushi or the song is performed on this stage. It has a spinning platform for the performers to enter and exit. In the area between the upstage and the downstage, the 3 stage positions known as railings or tessuri are located in the area behind the second partition and is often called the pit, and it is where the puppeteers stand in order to carry out the puppets' free-like movements. The puppets make their entrances and exits through the small curtains or the komaku. The right side is referred to as a kamite, while the left side is referred to as the shimote. The screened off rooms are just above these small curtains and they have special blinds made from bamboo so that the audience cannot see inside. Let us now look into Bhutto. Bhutto, loosely translated as stomp dance or earth dance, is an art form that has shown a continuous resistance to definitions. It is varied, multifaceted, diverse in style, techniques and even components that it makes sure one sweeping definition is never adequate to describe this theatre practice. Bhutto is an avant-garde, non-script based movement performance art and has its origins in the Japan of the 1960s. After the Second World War, Japan was a country in transition. It was a country still holding on to its old world traditional values while being forced into Western democratic values by America's conquest. During this time, there was much student unrest and protest. Theatre groups were performing socially challenging pieces and there were daily demonstrations in the streets. Bhutto was born out of this chaos. We move on to the history and context of Bhutto. Bhutto originated in Japan with a performance called kinjiki by a young, rebellious, modern dancer named Tatsumi Hijikata and his partner Kazuo Ono in 1959. It was based on the novel of the same name by Yukio Mishima. It explored the taboo of homosexuality. It was originally named Ankoku Bhutto, or dance of utter darkness, as Hijikata tried to distinguish his new dance. It was later shortened to Bhutto and drew in the work of a number of other artists. Bhutto was throwing off the constraints of Western dance and the rigidity of the highly codified Japanese traditions such as the ancient No drama and Kabuki. Let us look into the styles and practices of this form. Bhutto was formed by an amalgamation of influences. The German expressionistic dances of Mary Wigman and Harald Kreuzberg gave Bhutto its creative freedom. Western writers such as Genet, Artaud and de Sade were read by Bhutto groups. Surrealism and Dada were another source of inspiration. Ono was influenced by Marcel Marceau and especially by the passion of a flamenco dancer named La Argentina. Today, a great variety of styles and aesthetics can be found in Bhutto, and it has ceased being an exclusively Japanese art form and is developing all over the world, taking in regional flavors. Bhutto uses reduction to great effect. Stillness and slow motion abound the performance. The highly charged stillness and very slow motion embodied by the performer can heighten the awareness of the dancer and their audience to the detail of movement and explore time frames beyond the everyday. Hijikata believed that by distorting the body and by moving slowly on bent legs, he could transgress the traditional idea of the beautiful body and return to a more organic, natural beauty. Exploration of beauty in the natural movement as opposed to the perfect upright bodies of Western dance or the consciously controlled movements of No and Kabuki were always at the core of the performances. Rigorous off-stage workshops and exercises are included in the practice of Bhutto art form. The later Bhutto performers followed and mimicked Hijikata's style of dancing and movement, and this style came to be known as the Hijikata method. Conventional Bhutto exercises sometimes got great duress or pain, but pain, starvation and sleep deprivation were all considered part of life under Hijikata's method. The suffering is believed to help the dancers access a movement space where the movement cues have enormous power. It is also worth noting that Hijikata's movement cues are in general much more visceral and complicated than anything else since. Now, let us summarize the session. The Japanese art forms are truly unique in their style, conventions and practices. No is the most ancient and revered of all theatre forms of Japan. Considered as the highest of arts, this musical dance drama with slow and visually poetic movements originated in the 14th century from Sangaku, which is a comic entertainment theatre, and is said to have come from China to Japan in the 8th century. It features highly stylized masks, costumes, props, stage setting, and is also characterized by short interludes called kyogen. Kabuki is another traditional art form of Japan that originated in the Edo period of the 17th century and was initiated by a woman performer called Izumo no Okuni. Ironically, Kabuki is now an all-male performance, as the government had banned women from performing Kabuki, as it is an art form characterized by sensual and raw movements, gaudy and eye-catching costumes, and unrestrained and extravagant actions. It understandably became the major form of entertainment for common masses. Bunraku was the classical puppet theatre which originated in the 17th century. Like No and Kabuki, Bunraku performance is characterized by music and dance-like movements. The puppets and their costumes are made with a great care for details. The Ningyotsukai or Ningyotsukai, the puppeteers, the Tayu, who are the chanters, and the shamisen musicians are the performers in Bunraku. Bhutto is a post-World War avant-garde theatre form that originated in the 1960s, which disrupted all traditional practices of Japanese theatre. Bhutto has won international acclaim, and the method and style of Bhutto was adapted by various avant-garde movements in the West. Before we move on to the next session, please try to answer the following questions. The first one, describe the acting technique of No. The second question, what are the features of Bunraku stage design? The third question is, pick any Japanese theatre form and describe its history, conventions, styles and practices. The last question is, analyze how No theatre reflects the cultural context of its origin. To know more about Japanese theatre, you could refer The A to Z of Japanese Traditional Theatre by Samuel L. Later by Scarecrow Press. You can also refer The Traditional Theatre of Japan Kyogen, No, Kabuki and Puppetry by Weasley John Harris, published by the Edwin Melles Press, the University of Michigan. Thank you. I am sure by the end of this session, you would have understood the richness and variety of the Japanese theatrical form.